Hello, my name is Sahar Hamouda. I've had a training in English literature, so I'm a graduate of the Department of English Language and Literature, Alexandria University, where I also earned all my degrees, my BA, my MA, and my PhD. I teach at the university, and it's also where I got promoted. So now I'm a full professor in English literature. However, after I finished all the necessary degrees that I had to get, after I obtained them, I felt that I needed to relate my training and my education more to my country and my city. And also because for my MA, I did something on history, British history, but also related to British colonial history. This got me very interested in the history of Egypt and Alexandria. And so I started doing research about the modern history of Alexandria, which dates back to 1804, when Muhammad Ali became Viceroy of Egypt. And because of this colonial dimension, I'm also interested in post-colonial and comparative literature. Now, having got interested in the modern history of Alexandria, I did a piece of research on a British school in Alexandria called Victoria College, which was like partly a microcosm of Alexandria, but it was also useful because the school was placed in a socio-political, geographical kind of positioning, not just in Egypt, but in the whole of the Middle East, and it traced also all the political and social and economic developments that were happening in Egypt and in the region. And from there, we joined the Library of Alexandria when it was first established, in order to be able to do more research on Alexandria, and eventually focusing on its cultural heritage within the Mediterranean. The Library of Alexandria was a revival of the ancient Library of Alexandria, which was the first really open university or research center and library that was available to the world. The new Library of Alexandria was an international effort to revive it. So in addition to the University of Alexandria, the government of Egypt, there are a lot of international concerted efforts to recreate the library. When the director was chosen for it, Dr. Ismail Sirajuddin, he decided that for this library to be a true heir to the ancient one, or a daughter of the mother, it shouldn't just be a repository of books. And so he had this idea of creating all sorts of activities in the library, to do with art, with science, with digitization, with research, with children, special attention to the young generation, and so on. We set up the center in order to position Alexandria in the Mediterranean once again, because it has lost its former position as a leading and as a cosmopolitan city, through a number of things. Through first documenting its heritage, both kinds of heritage, tangible and intangible, through interacting and opening up dialogue with other Mediterranean cities, particularly those on the coast or sea cities, ports like ourselves, but anything anyway to do with the Euro-Mediterranean region, either through research or through even artistic experiments. This was at the beginning, 15 years ago. And also, because we can't just live in the past, we have to interact with the city, the contemporary city. We also contribute towards ideas for the sustainable development of the city. So we also work as a think tank and a database. We have very important database. We also have very important GIS system. We produce a lot of maps, correct, accurate maps, either just proper maps or cultural maps. So we have something like, we have 7 cultural routes there in one packet, allowing people to sometimes walk. Some of them are walking tours, some of them are one-day tours. For example, we have an archaeological tour, an architectural tour, center of the city tour, and so on. I feel that we Alexandrians know hardly anything about our city and about our past and who we are, where we came from, why we are who we are. So frankly, I personally would rather educate my own people first, my Alexandrians first, and help them discover their city and know their origins, why this monument is there, or who built this building and why, and so on. The other kind of heritage we are concerned with is intangible heritage, and this could range from philosophy in the ancient world, Neoplatonism, schools of philosophy, etc., down to something as mundane and as everyday as the fishermen of Alexandria, because obviously they've always lived, or Alexandrians have always lived off fishing, so we try to document their stories as well. And we're turning more and more towards oral narratives and oral histories in the attempt to preserve ordinary people's stories. So we try to, for example, collect some oral narratives about Alexandria from World War II until now, because we can't find survivors from before World War II. What Alexandria had been like, being such a cosmopolitan center, the tolerance, the interaction, the marriages, the funerals that they used to attend, how they felt about the British occupier, but how they felt about the foreigner living next door to them, with whom they broke bread, who were their friends and their neighbors. And sometimes they married into these families, and the distinction between the foreign occupier, but the foreign Alexandrian, the citizen of Alexandria who'd been living in Alexandria for generations. We trace the milestones through these oral narratives of the changes that came across Alexandria, whether it be World War II, whether it was the revolution, the 52 revolution, the sequestrations and nationalizations, and so on, and how the fabric of society changed. We also do things like one important project we worked on was documenting the beginning of the Egyptian and Arab, of course, cinema in Alexandria, because the Arab cinema or the Egyptian cinema began in Alexandria. So we did quite a lot of documentation on that, and we have a very nice book about the subject, which I hope is a reference. The other things like, for example, gastronomy in Alexandria, how it reflects both the Mediterranean but also the multicultural population that lived in Alexandria. We also used to do things like, as I said, artistic manifestations. So we'd have an artist or two artists from Europe coming over, living in Alexandria for a few months, working with an Egyptian artist, together producing an exhibition which we would host, and see how the two affected each other and what kind of a dialogue came from that exchange. And of course, we're concerned with the literature of Alexandria, because perhaps more than any city in the world, more even than Dublin, Alexandria is a mythical city. Alexandria is a legendary city which has captivated writers and travelers until today. So that is also something worth recording and worth researching and documenting.